All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this morning for an intro to Reclaim webinar. We're going to be walking through the app, the features, going over some of the things that you can do to streamline your time blocking, your scheduling with Reclaim.ai. I'm going to start sharing my screen and we can walk through everything. There's a Q&A section here in the webinar. All right. Oh, welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for echo. And you can leave any questions right there, and I will go through and answer them as we progress through the webinar. Share my screen, we can get started. All right. So first things first, what is Reclaim? Reclaim is a smart scheduling tool for Google Calendar that allows you to optimize your time blocking so that you can get more out of your busy work week, make time for your priorities while keeping your schedule flexible and open to changes that come up during the week. If you've ever tried manually time blocking your time, you might have found that it was very time consuming, that it might not have been something that was easy to be consistent with because, you can create a great weekly plan by blocking everything out, making sure that every minute of your day is going towards a priority. But if something comes up, like a meeting gets changed or someone has to reschedule something, or you need to fit something more important, a priority in, you have to manually go in and reshuffle everything on your calendar to accommodate that change. And Reclaim essentially optimizes and automates that entire process. So you tell Reclaim what your priorities are across your work life, your personal life, all of the things that you need to get done, all the people that you need to meet with. And Reclaim creates that perfect, productive plan for your week automatically, and also automatically readjusts everything if a change does come up, so that you can be focused on, waking up, looking at your calendar, knowing what you have to do for the day, and being assured that it is the best plan for your day. So Reclaim is a web app, so we're going to log in and walk through the app. You might be a new user, you might never have signed up for Reclaim. So let me know in the Q&A section what you'd prefer to be looking at. I'm just going to sort of walk through everything, and then we can go into questions a little bit later. So when you log into Reclaim, this is the view that you see. It's the planner, your classic sort of calendar view and overview of your events for the week that you can scroll through, similar to Google Calendar. If you've used any kind of online calendar before, this should be pretty intuitive. In the sidebar here, it is collapsible. You have sort of an overview of your priority habits, your task list, and your low priority habits, which we'll go over here in a second. And then on this left-hand side, you have all of your Reclaim features and settings that you can set up. So the planner is sort of that open view that you get. Now, I'm going to start with habits because that's our most popular feature, and it's an awesome tool to make sure that you're making time for all of those routine, recurring things that you need to get done. Habits are your, like I said, recurring events, whether that's work or personal routines that you want to make time for. So personal routines could look like exercise or meditation or family time. And then, work routines could look like updating a weekly report or doing a monthly metrics review, things like that, retrospective planning, meeting planning. And you build out these habits with sort of flexible rules for Reclaim, telling Reclaim how you want to complete this habit and on what frequency and what days, and Reclaim will automatically block it out in your calendar around everything else that you have going on so it doesn't slip through the cracks. So all of your habits sort of live in this list here in the Habits tab. You have your priority habits and your low priority habits. What distinguishes these is whether or not they prioritize before or after tasks, which we'll go over next. So you have your priority habits that will prioritize before task work, and then your low priority habits, which, if you have room around task work, they'd be nice to get done, but they're sort of lower priority there. Now you can create new habits with this button here, new habits, and it pull up a form. We also have over 100 templates by department from other busy professionals in your department and what they're making time for. And I'm going to work off a template today just to walk through that. And the form looks exactly the same either way. So I'm going to do afternoon catch up. It's a great way to make sure that you're not checking your email 100 times a day. If you're constantly, going back to your inbox to see if you got a new email, it just becomes a big time sink over the course of the day. And so one great habit that a lot of people use is doing sort of a morning catch up and an afternoon catch up, where you have, half an hour or 25 minutes in this case defended to check your inbox, check all your messages in the morning, and then once again in the evening, so that you can prioritize the rest of the time towards something more productive. So This is sort of the form that pulls up, and this is a very similar look that you'll see as we walk through the other features in the way that you build out your Reclaim features. So you have your title here that you can customize, and an emoji if you wanted to add one. This is how the event will display on your calendar. You have your scheduling rules, which is sort of the important section here, where you can enter your duration, and there's a minimum and maximum duration that you can give Reclaim. So the minimum amount of time that you want to work on it, at least have that time defended on the calendar, and then the maximum. So, what is the maximum amount of time that you want to spend on this habit? In this case, we're just going to leave it at 25 minutes. That's plenty of time to sort of check your inbox and get caught up. But you can customize this to be whatever you want it to be. Then you can select your hours. So when do you want Reclaim to schedule this event? You have your working, meeting, and personal hours. These are our default scheduling hours. And then on the paid plans, you can also build out custom hours, which could look like deep focus work hours or different client hours, where you can essentially build out additional templates that are quick select in these dropdowns. Or you can have one-off hours where you can set sort of customized hours for this specific habit. So I'm going to leave it the way that it is for this template. And it gives a range. You can add multiple time ranges to a single day. You can select or deselect days. I'm going to leave this Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. through 6 p.m. Anywhere in that time range where I'm available, Reclaim will sort of fit that in around my duration preferences. Frequency, I'm going to leave this as every day, but you can also create habits that are monthly or quarterly or every other week, so that those don't fall through the cracks, especially those that are, on a longer term frequency. You can give Reclaim an ideal time. So you have that time range up here, but you can also give Reclaim an ideal time. Ideally, I'd like to do my weekly or my afternoon catch up at 4:30, if that time is available. And if not, Reclaim sort of tries to get as close to the ideal time as possible in that time range. You can also have a habit start out in the future. And again, these settings are pretty common throughout all of the features. So I'm sort of walking through these in a little bit more detail. I could say that I want to start this habit as of next week. I'm going to leave it as soon as possible so Reclaim can start scheduling that immediately. You can add notes here, which is really nice. This includes like links to docs, links to certain web pages, so that you don't have to go looking for sort of what you need to complete that habit when the time comes. So you can, for like a catch up, you could link your inbox to directly have that in the event, excuse me, when it comes up on your calendar. Now you also have the option to control how your event displays to others looking at your calendar. So you have that visibility control. In this case, I'm happy for my team or anyone looking at my calendar to know that I'm busy, excuse me, with, 1 second. It's early on the East Coast, so this is the first time I'm speaking this morning. I'm happy for my team or anyone looking at my calendar to see that I'm busy with an afternoon catch up. That transparency is really helpful for me and my team so that we have a little bit more context about what our busyness looks like every day. You can also just mark it as a busy time block so that it shows that you're busy during that time, but doesn't give any sort of details around that event specifically for more like private or personal events. That's a great option. Then you have your time defense settings where you have sort of a spectrum that you can tell Reclaim how aggressively you want to defend this calendar or this event on your calendar. The default is more defensive, where Reclaim, as your calendar books up or as the time draws near for that event to begin, Reclaim will sort of lock it down and secure that time from being rescheduled. You can also mark this on the other end of the spectrum as always free. So Reclaim will always overbook it if something more important comes up, or always busy, where Reclaim will say this is the highest priority thing, nothing is more important, and we will automatically lock that in down on the calendar, regardless of how much time is left to reschedule. And so I'm going to leave it as more defensive, which is sort of a nice soft spot there, a nice default. You can have notifications for the event. This pulls on your Google Calendar settings. You can see others for collaborative events. And this is another neat feature, avoiding duplicate events, which works better for something like lunch, where if another event on your calendar includes a certain word, Reclaim will notice that and then forego the instance for that day. Again, this works better with something like lunch or dinner, where, if Reclaim saw the word restaurant or lunch meeting or maybe lunch in a different language, you could add that in, and Reclaim would then forego scheduling your lunch break on that day because you don't need to have 2 lunches. So I'm going to hit save, and Reclaim is automatically going to start scanning my calendar and getting that scheduled around all of the other events that I already have scheduled. Let me see if I have any questions. A little break here. All right. Again, all the questions are in the Q&A section. And then let's refresh here. All right. That's why we already have an afternoon catch up scheduled here. So I'm going to go back to that event. This is what it would look like if it did officially start scheduling. You have all of your upcoming events here. I already had this habit created, so Reclaim didn't schedule it twice. And I have all of my upcoming events for that habit instance right here. I have my past events that I can look at down here. You can always edit your habits later down the line to make any changes or updates to any of those details that we walked through. And then you have it in your list here. To delete a habit, this is actually a great opportunity. You can just hit in the detail section of the habit, hit yes, delete, and Reclaim will remove that event from your calendar. You can also pause habits if you wanted to restart them down the line. You don't have to delete them entirely. There's no way to bring them back once you do delete them. Okay, so afternoon catch up is automatically scheduling. If we look at our calendar, afternoon catch up weekly, and we have all of our events right here in this sidebar as well. Now, when you look at the calendar, we have a whole bunch of events here. Lunch is another habit that I've scheduled. Exercise is another habit that we have scheduled. All of these events, if you can notice, there's some that have a dashed outline and some that have sort of a solid block outline. And this highlights a core concept of Reclaim, which is working around sort of those free and busy time blocks. And Google Calendar works in the same way, but with sort of this automated scheduling. Reclaim will initially, unless you mark it as always busy, schedule any of your events. Oh, look at it scheduling it twice. Oops. Schedule any of your events as sort of a reserved block. And that's these events that have a dashed outline. That was last week. So this space is sort of reserved for a certain event. If we go further out, maybe we'll have a few more. Here we go. But it's not locked down in place yet because there's room for it to move around depending on the preferences that I had set. So if something more important came in, Reclaim could schedule over that spot and still have time to fit whatever other event it was to make it before my deadline or around the preferences that I set. Now, when you have a solid time block, in this case, lunch here, Reclaim has secured that time block in place and locked it down because there's no room for it to accommodate changes around the preferences that I have set. Now, Reclaim does its best to sort of build out your perfect weekly plan around all of the priorities that you'd give it, all of the details that you've filled out, but you are always in control of making last minute changes. And that's a big part of, living in a professional world. You might have time come up sooner when a meeting ends early that you can start something, or you might want to reschedule something because you'd prefer to work on it that day. And you can totally do that in the Reclaim Planner. It's similar to Google Calendar, is all drag and drop. I could move something to a different time. If you do move it, Reclaim automatically locks it down because you're sort of saying this is my preferred time, and Reclaim will honor that. You can lock things down automatically. You can start things early. So say I didn't have this webinar and I had an hour in my morning and I wanted to go work out quickly. I could start a habit now that isn't currently scheduled. And if I go to this week, I hit start on exercise, and Reclaim will automatically honor that and say, okay, well, you're working out now. We'll get that moved up. Where is it? Here we go. We'll get that moved up here and then move the rest of your calendar around to accommodate that. Same with stopping or restarting events. This works for tasks as well. Essentially keeping you in full control of your calendar as it changes throughout the week. Now, habits are sort of a great way to make time for your recurring routines, so the things that you want to get done on a recurring basis. And your tasks are a little bit different in the sense that they're sort of your rotating to-do list, your project, all of the task work that you have on your plate that's constantly changing. So they're more one-off tasks or to-do events. Let's see if we have any questions. What are some of the printing options? Let me bring my knitting blank. That is actually a very good question. I don't know that anyone has ever asked that. I've personally never printed anything out. I'm going to make a note of that and ask the product team that, so that I can leave an answer in the description of this video. I'll send it in the follow-up email as well, because I don't have an answer to that. I'm not actually sure what the printing options are in that sense. But that's a great question, and I will make a note of that. Thank you for bringing that up. Tasks. Okay. Now, I've also sort of walked through all of this in the planner view. Reclaim is a bi-directional tool for Google Calendar. So all of the sort of calendar events that you built out in Reclaim are automatically also built out in Google Calendar. So if we look at my calendar, it's the exact same view in that sense. Any changes that I make in Google Calendar will automatically reflect in Reclaim. Any changes that you make in Reclaim will automatically reflect in Google Calendar. Now, in Google Calendar, obviously you don't have sort of the visual for the dashed outline or a solid time block. In this case, Reclaim adds an additional little emoji to the event where you have a shield for events that are busy, and then a little free emoji for events that are currently marked as free. Now, again, you can drag and drop events to whatever you wanted it to be at. You can extend the time. Moving events to the past marks it as done with Reclaim. Again, you have all of this functionality in that sense in both Reclaim and the planner. Now, in Google Calendar, if you prefer working in Google Calendar, if that's where you're more experienced and more comfortable, you can sort of function Reclaim entirely out of Google Calendar. We have a Google Calendar add-on that's free that you can install once you've signed up with Reclaim. And once installed, it adds a little sidebar to your Google Calendar that's very similar to the planner sidebar here, where you have an overview of your habits, your task list, can start and stop events, create new tasks right from Google Calendar. Again, Reclaim isn't there to replace any tools that you're already using. The whole idea is that it fits into your workflow to optimize and improve the sort of, process that you already have in place around the apps that you use, where the platforms that you're comfortable in, to make you more productive, to make you, to give you back that control over your time without having to be another tool that you have to learn. So really easy once you get started in terms of building up that consistency and use. Now when we look at tasks, you have sort of your task list. Again, this is very common. Bridging that gap between your to-do list and your calendar can be really difficult. You can know everything that you need to do, but if it's not on the calendar, it's very easy for it to, get lost in the busy week. So creating tasks is a super easy process. You can create or hit this button up here from anywhere in the app. You can hit C, and the shortcut will pull up that form from anywhere in the app, or in the Google Calendar add-on in Google Calendar as well. Similar to a habit. Let's just say I have to edit this video for a webinar. You can add an emoji. Again, this is a very similar form with these rules as we saw in the habits. You can add as many hours as you need. Let's say I have 1 hour. I don't need to split it up because it's just an hour, but if it was a longer form one, I could split it up. Again, selecting your hours, when you want it to begin, and your deadline, which is a little bit different than habits with a recurring basis. Let's say my deadline is October 20th. Again, you have your visibility here. Adding notes, and you hit create, and Reclaim will automatically start scheduling it on the calendar, which we'll see here in a second. Perfect. Give that a second to schedule here. Let's see where we have any questions. Okay, so Reclaim has actually highlighted this as possibly being difficult to fit in with the other events that I have on my calendar. It did find time on October 4th. So if we go to the planner on October 4th, Reclaim will have fit that in right here. And it marked it as yellow if you saw that in a second. when it was scheduling it, because my calendar is booking up very quickly. And Reclaim has fit that in here, and it's all marked as free currently because there's still room for it to reschedule. And if you just notice that, Reclaim overscheduled it over something else because it was a priority, and then automatically updated the rest of my calendar to sort of accommodate that change. Your tasks, like your habits, are also stack rankable, telling Reclaim what your priorities are. You can see all of your marked done tasks in the marked done list here. You can always add time to an event later down the line. You can log work that you had worked on the task by if it wasn't scheduled on the calendar. And the great thing too, there's a section here called done scheduling where you tell Reclaim all of the details, how long you need, when it's due by, but once it's actually burnt down through the time that you said you needed for it, Reclaim will move it into the section where you have sort of a checkpoint to say, okay, I did finish this is done, or, oh, I didn't actually get to this, or I need more time, and Reclaim will get it back on the calendar. And then, so those are all your tasks. Now, Reclaim also works with task integrations. Like I mentioned, it's sort of supposed to fit into the workflow. Reclaim integrates with other additional platforms that you might already be using, including Slack, where you can update your Slack status automatically to your calendar so your team knows what you're working on. Asana, ClickUp, Google Tasks, Todoist, Linear, Jira. And allows you to automatically sync your task list from those platforms directly to Google Calendar as smart tasks that you manually create in Reclaim, so that you always have time to actually work on the things that you need to do before they're due. Now, all of your task integrations live under settings integrations down here, where you can manage all of your integrations, set everything up. Reclaim integrations work different with each platform just because they are more specific and each works a little bit different. We have a lot of details on that in the help center, which I'll also have linked in the follow-up with all of our task integrations, walking through each one. So it's a great place to start if you do use any of those platforms. Now, those are sort of your personal priorities, your habits, your routines, your tasks, all of the things that you need to get done personally. But Reclaim also has collaborative features, including smart one-on-ones and scheduling links to optimize your meeting schedule. Now, smart one-on-ones is especially great for those busy managers who are balancing a lot of one-on-one meetings in a week. A lot of time can end up being spent on rescheduling one-on-one events, finding time for them, skipping them, and they end up getting canceled or moved around a bunch, which again is a time sink rather than a productive sort of flow for one-on-one meetings, especially if you're balancing 10, 20 one-on-one meetings a week. Now, smart one-on-one meetings are a great way to optimize that by automatically finding time on both people's busy calendars around, again, those preferences and rules that you give Reclaim. So if we look at one of these here, we have our event, all of the upcoming meetings for this group. And the great thing is that this works with Reclaim or non-Reclaim users. It's a one-time email invitation. Again, you can add notes with links to agendas or something like that. You specify the duration and frequency, invite your other guest. You have your ideal time and day that if you had a specific day that was better for both of you, and then your starting time. You can add a video conferencing link or a physical location, and Reclaim will take all of these rules similar to habits and tasks and schedule time on both people's calendars when they're both available to find time to meet. And the great thing with smart one-on-ones is that, it gets on the calendar, it's all coming up. You don't have to worry about actually taking the time to schedule everything, but it also gives both the organizer and the attendee the power to skip or reschedule an event if something comes up without having to reach out and then manually do it. So in this case, say you have an event coming up, I can reschedule it for another time or another day or another week when we're next both available. Or if I didn't really need to meet with this person this week, I could just hit skip and it will skip that instance until the next one for both of us automatically and update the other user as well. So again, just giving you back that little bit of time by optimizing that process. Now, scheduling links is the other meeting feature that we came out, the most recent feature of Reclaim, where you have more of your meeting link that you can share with other people so they can book time on your calendar. And you can build out booking pages with different link groups for different instances. You can share just a single meeting link. And there's a couple of things that make Reclaim scheduling stand out. You have flexible durations, where you can add up to 3 different durations to a single scheduling link that your attendee can choose to book from in the same link. So they could choose from any of these times that you can customize. You also have the option to create a high priority link, which is an issue that we saw very often with different users having the issue of, okay, yes, sometimes meetings are more important. I'm happy to accommodate, those most important meetings. How do I, prioritize without having to go in and delete things from my calendar before sending it out, so they can definitely have time with me. And Reclaim offers 2 different variations of schedule links: normal priority links, which just show your open times on the calendar, or a high priority link, which will show your tasks, habits, and smart one-on-ones, which we've already covered, as available times on the calendar when you share a high priority meeting link. And if someone schedules a meeting over one of those events, Reclaim automatically reschedules the rest of your calendar to accommodate this meeting, which you've sort of said is your most important one. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions quickly. As a quick sort of, if you have a Google Calendar that you use for one agency and you share the events to view in your personal Google Calendar, will those agency appointments, which are only viewed in the personal calendar, also populate in the Reclaim.ai scheduler? Okay, so yes, Calendar Sync is a feature that we have for syncing separate Google Calendars together. And this can be for your different work calendars, for personal to work calendars, whatever that might look like. And you have full control over the visibility for it. So Calendar Sync allows you to copy events to a primary calendar so that you can manage, your availability more accurately by seeing everything in one calendar and, avoid that overbooking. So if we look at the sync here, for example, where we have our work email going to our personal calendar syncing to our work calendar, we have the specification of what it's for. And here you have your visibility settings. So this is how it would appear on your calendar. In this case, it could look as a personal commitment for everyone. So even for yourself, it would just say personal commitment with no additional details. So if this was your source event on your personal calendar, a doctor's appointment, for example, on your primary calendar that it syncs to your work calendar, it would say personal commitment, and anyone else who looks at it would also see personal commitment. Now you have a few options here. Another one is event details to you, busy to most others. So say, you have your source event, which is a doctor's appointment. For you, the synced event will show the same thing, doctor's appointment with all of those details. And then to other people who don't have access to your calendar, like IT administrators, specifically if you're syncing to a work calendar, it will show as just a busy event so that you have that time defended from being overbooked, but without those additional details. So you have that control for that visibility in each individual sync setting there. And you can build out as many calendar syncs as you want. They do work one way. So if you wanted to build it both directions, you have to create a new sync for each one. But again, they're unlimited in that sense, where you can build out or sync as many calendars as you need, especially if you work with, different client calendars, different agency calendars. This is a great tool for that. Now there's also a bunch of settings that we didn't go through, and we're hitting time here. But hopefully this was helpful in walking through some of the main features that we have. Another new one that we have is our stats page, where you can sort of view where your time is spent every week around all of these events. Another great starting point if you are a new user is the setup guide, which is up here in the top header, where you can walk through all of the things that we talked about today with individual steps to get onboarded properly, to get everything the most out of Reclaim from the beginning, walking through each of the features and how they work and what you can work with them with additional help documentation. That's a great place to start tracking your onboarding as well. We also have, like I mentioned, our help center, which has a ton of documentation on all of our features and all of our integrations. We have a YouTube channel that covers a lot of details around our features and integrations and everything else. And we'll send a follow-up email with this stream linked in there if you wanted to rewatch something. First baby step to get started if it seems intimidating. I get it. It's obviously a big thing to look at when you're just getting started. One When you do sign up, if you haven't already, there is a short onboarding process where you can sort of set up those little baby step pieces. And then once you get started, if you head right into the setup guide and just start from the very beginning, it's a great way to get a lot of context around each individual feature and sort of have those individual steps to getting started. We also, in the Help Center, have a section right here, getting started with Reclaim, where we have a nice long list, just step by step, to get you started with the individual features, how it works, core concepts for how Reclaim schedules, so that you can get started. If you have any questions or if you run into any issues or can't find answers in the Help Center, you can also contact support in the app or from the website page, where you can talk to our team directly. And like I said, it's big to get started, but it is very intuitive. It works with Google Calendar, so you can work where you are most comfortable and build out a calendar that works best for you. But thank you so much for joining. Thank you. I appreciate you being here. I hope you guys have a great start to your week. And yeah, I'll send a follow-up email with everything linked. And thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully this was helpful. I will be here in the next demo next week if you wanted to join another one, but otherwise have a great start of your week, great rest of your Monday. And I will see you on our social and on YouTube. Bye.